This is Dr. Matt Barber of Alabama Orthopedic Clinic. We are proud supporters of Ransom Reprogram, Ransom Ministries, and all of the good work that they do in our community. If you would like to learn more about us, check us out at alortho.com or barbertotaljoint.com. You can also hear more from me personally on the Ortho Real podcast. Thank you again for allowing us to be involved with Ransom Ministries and all of the great work that they do.
Hey, welcome to the Ransom Experience. My name is Matt Armbruster, Executive Director of Ransom Ministries. You're going to hear stories from people that we've served and people that serve alongside us, as well as those that we partner with throughout our community. You're going to hear about decisions they made throughout their life and things that happened through different avenues of their life that caused them to go down a path that they didn't see themselves going. And then also those decisions that they have to make on a daily basis to stay away from those decisions that they made in the past. Ransom Ministries empowers people to utilize their God-given gifts and talents in their career and for their community. All along the way, we learn how to help those close to us and also maybe even help ourselves. This is real. This is raw. This is Ransom.
With every star.
This show is brought to you by Ransom Recycling, your number one choice for electronic recycling in Mobile, Alabama. Help reduce waste in our landfills by recycling all of your unwanted, unused, and non-working electronics. Ransom Recycling is a division of Ransom Ministries that is helping to put men and women back to work. Check out ransomministries.com for a complete list of acceptable items. Drop-offs and pickups can be easily scheduled through the website. Please note that we are not accepting TVs at this time. Ransom Recycling, open 8 to 3 Monday through Friday. Help our planet while helping men and women re-enter the workforce.
With every star, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head.
Welcome to the Ransom Experience, where we talk to participants, we talk to volunteers that we have along the way, and we just get their point of view on what Ransom's meant to them, how their life has changed, and how, for the volunteers, how serving has changed the way they look at people. So one of the things that we learned through the process, and I know over the last few episodes you've heard a lot of my talking, but I just felt God leading me in a way that I just felt like I was supposed to do this. So here we go. I just try to follow whatever God tells me to do. And hopefully this touches someone. Hopefully this will help you. And we're just going to go through this. And one of the things with serving people and actually just being on this same planet with people is trying to understand why they're where they are, how they got to where they are, some of the things that they deal with on a daily basis, and some of the things that we don't really understand at times because we've never had to deal with them. So I'm just going to kind of set the tone a little bit. And this is really just about understanding what people struggle with on a daily basis that I might not necessarily struggle with. It was over a few months back in, I want to say it was 2015, maybe. Well, no, it's probably about 2012. I can't remember exactly. But I just knew over those few months I was getting a strong feeling that I really didn't know what the people we served actually went through on a daily basis. While I had people generously give to me during a divorce, my greatest times of need, I had never been homeless or really dealt with the things that many of the people that we served were navigating. So as I prayed that day, I felt God really telling me that I was supposed to go homeless on purpose for a period of time. And I'll be honest, I said, probably out loud, "Are you kidding me? That's the last thing that I want to do." So I pushed. Many of us do. We hear God tell us something and we just say, "I ain't doing that." And I pushed that thought aside and went about my day. I was thinking I could read a book or learn from the people in the cafes or the people in the ministry that were homeless what it was like. But isn't this going homeless thing a little extreme, Lord? So over those next few weeks, I didn't even pray much because I was afraid I would feel his push towards that project again. Eventually, I went to my wife, Tara, and I told her what I felt I was being led to do. And since she is usually the brakes in our relationship and I'm usually the gas, I thought she would shoot down the idea. But to my surprise, she agreed with God and not me. I wasn't surprised that she disagreed with me, but why did she have to do it at this time? Well, we both started praying about how this was going to look and what it was going to be like. During this time, God sent this man in my life named George. He came in the cafe. He was homeless, but he liked the idea of being able to provide his own meal and volunteer at the cafes. He would come in every day and work. He quickly became more than a volunteer. He was a good friend at that time, someone that I trusted. So I'd ask him about different things. And I remember that first day I asked him, what do you think about me going homeless on purpose? And he was like, I think that'd be great. So me and him talked, and he kind of gave me some insight and things that I needed to do and prepare and all those different things. And I remember, he really helped me see that God was in this and that I had no idea what people that lived in the streets or people that were in poverty or people that struggled in certain areas were going through. I really didn't understand it, even though I'd been serving in this ministry for a few years. So we talked about it. He encouraged me. And so this was on Mardi Gras weekend. I'll never forget it. Seemed like the best possible time to do it. So over the next few weeks leading up to that day, I tried to rationalize not doing it. I told God all the reasons it was not a good idea. I talked at length with George about his experience and got a lot of great advice from him during that time. Began to get a lot of peace about it, and I started to pray that God would teach me and change the way that I looked at others. Through this time, I really started getting a peace, and I started journaling a little bit about what I was feeling. So as I went about this time, I remember I've journaled each day of what this was like, and I'm going to kind of read through some of those excerpts of this journal and let you kind of hopefully get into where I was. So here we are, day one, right? I start off with a backpack, a tent, sleeping bag, a few books, a change of clothes, a protein bar, a flashlight, and $10 and whatever I had on my back. I remember it was Saturday, February 19th. I was still hoping God would change his mind, to be honest. I parked the car about 7:30 a.m. and began to walk. Thank God there was a break in the rain. I had decided that I was going to put my tent, so I started walking there. It rained off and on all the way, and I had to duck into a McDonald's one time when the rain got so heavy that I could barely see. After it let up, I walked a few more blocks and got to the location I thought I was going to stay. That was around 9:30 a.m. It was raining a little harder then, so I darted in the woods to get my spot. As I was walking, I noticed two people leaning up against a tree covered with a blue tarp. I walked slowly, trying to make some noise so that they would hear me and that I wouldn't scare them. I talked with them for a while and did not get a good feeling, so I prayed with them and moved on. I walked up to the bus stop, covered, and sat under there for about an hour while it poured down rain. I didn't know what I was going to do except walk and try to find another place. Once the rain had let up a little, I began to walk, really not knowing where I was going to tell you the truth. Just wandering without a real plan, and for me, that was difficult. I walked, and along the way, I checked wooded areas as I came to them to see if there was a good spot, and each time there were other signs of people that were staying there. Really don't want to stay in the same place with others because, to be honest, you do the same thing in the woods that people do in their homes. You wash up, use the restroom, and if you don't like people walking up on you in your home, so goes it in the woods. I kept walking and looking, feeling a little more desperate as time went on. It really started to rain, so I got under the overhang at a church to get out of it. By now, everything was soaked. My clothes, my backpack, the inside of my backpack. So I just sat there frustrated, cold, really wanting to stop. I sat there and someone drove up. They saw me and immediately backed up and left. I continued to walk again after the rain let up a little. It's around noon now, so I had only been out a few hours, and I'd already wanted to give up. I checked a couple more wooded areas, but again, each time there were people in them trying to stay dry. About 2:30 in the afternoon, I found a place to set up the tent that looked good. So I went in there and I set up. It was really hard to set the tent up without getting wet inside of it. I was done setting it up about 3:30 in the afternoon, and I got inside and sat there, wondering if it would ever stop raining. I then realized I had no water or food to eat, so I began to hope the rain would stop so I could get out and get some water at the very least. Finally, it let up, so I unloaded my backpack of all the wet stuff so I would have room to carry the water. I went to the gas station and had to buy a gallon jug of water, and then I went to the laundromat to see if I could charge my phone, and they let me. Well, I sat there and the bottom fell out. It began to rain so hard I could not see the light pole in the parking lot. I began to wonder what was happening to my tent, and now how I was going to get back there in the dark. I had forgot my flashlight. I sat there until about 5:30 and realized that it wasn't going to stop, so I began to walk. I went into the woods. The path that I had taken was 6 inches underwater, so I waded back, thinking my tent was probably soaked through. When I got there, it was fine, and I got inside and tried to figure out if I had anything dry. I didn't, except my sleeping bag, a t-shirt, and a pair of underwear that I had in a waterproof bag. Thank God I put that in there. Well, I got into my sleeping bag. It was about 6:15, and I realized it was 12 hours until daylight. And I'm in a tent with a lightning storm and tornado watches going on. As hard as it was for me to admit, I was really scared, and I wanted to go home. But then I thought of those who don't have a place to go home, and I prayed for them, and it took my focus off me. I pulled out my Bible. I did put that in a Ziploc bag, and I began to read. It helped me with my fear. God's word is cool like that. I tossed and turned and thought every noise was someone coming up on me, a tree coming down, or a host of other things. It rained all night, and I do mean all night, and the wind blew as well. I probably slept 30 minutes or maybe an hour, and then, praise God, it was daylight. Now what? So this was a very eye-opening day for me. I felt frustration, anger, fear, resentment, embarrassment, joy, and conviction all in the first day. I will tell you this, I notice people don't really notice what's going on around them. Most of the time we're all in such a hurry with our lives when there are people in need all around us. I wanted to feel what they feel, but had no idea how overwhelming it would be. The end of that day brought knowledge to me that no book had ever done. I also thought that sometimes it's just easier to not know what's going on around in the world around us because it takes away the obligation to do something. But that is not what I read in God's word. Those in need are his heart, and he talks about the most. We all need to just open our eyes. There are needs all around us. And that's why I'm doing this podcast. I really believe God just kind of showed me that, was that we all just need to see the people around us. So now we're in day 2. It's 6 a.m. at the start of the day, too, and I had a rough night. Sounds really scary in the woods, and it sounded like everything was right on top of me. I got out of my tent, gathered my wet clothes, and put them in my wet backpack. I decided to go to the laundromat and dry all my stuff, including my bag. I headed that way, and as I was coming out of the woods, a police officer was sitting in his car right where I was coming out, and I thought, oh no, I'm busted. But he didn't even look at me. I kept walking and stopped by the local hotel, and I went in and asked if I could get a cup of coffee. The man at the desk said yes and pointed me to the coffee. This had to be the best cup of coffee I've ever had. I then walked to the convenience store close by, and I decided to ask if I could use the restroom. For those that know me, I have a thing about public restrooms, but I have a bigger thing about going out in the woods. They said I could use the facility, so I did, and I also washed up while I was in there. It was about 6:45, and the laundromat didn't open till 7, so I sat out front and waited for them to open. It took $2 and put everything I had in the dryer and dried it. at the same time. I charged my phone up and looked at the newspaper. It was slow and not many people were there, so it was nice. Once everything was dry, I decided to go to the bathroom and put on dry clothes and then dry the ones I had on. After I finally finished drying everything, I decided to start walking, and once again it started to rain. I ran to an overhang of a local business so I could keep everything dry. It didn't rain long, so I got back and walking. I decided to figure out which church I was going to go to. I continued to walk, and I felt the Lord lead me to a particular church, so I headed that way. Walking past other churches and watching families going to church together, I started to miss my family and wondered what it is like for those that are out there each day who don't have anyone to see these people with their families. I continued to walk and got to the church about 9:55. The service started at 10. God had confirmed this was the church where He wanted me to go. I went in the front door, and the greeters were very friendly and pointed me to the door leading to the worship area. I went in, and it was dark, which was good. I sat on the back row and put my bag under my feet. The worship band was good, but I could not concentrate. I kept thinking how hungry I was. Did I stink? What if that cop goes and tears my tent? Where am I going to get my food? Man, I have to walk all the way back, and a host of other thoughts that were going on in my mind. To say it was hard to worship was an understatement. I actually left 30 minutes into the service. I began to walk again. I walked past other churches, saw people filing in, and I really just wanted to go to church with my family. Then I stopped to rest for a while from walking with soggy socks and wet feet. The day before, the bottoms of my feet were now one solid blister. I decided I would stop at another church and see if they offered food. At the first church, I was met by a man at the door who asked me what I needed. And I asked if they offered any kind of food assistance, and he said, no, we don't do that. And that was it. I walked away feeling kind of like an idiot. I came up to another church about 12:30 that had some cars in the parking lot and a sign out front that said all are welcome. So I thought maybe I could get food there. I saw a man walking out and said, excuse me, sir, and he kept walking. And then I said again, excuse me, sir, and he looked towards me, and I asked him, does your church offer food assistance? And he said, I don't know. I haven't been going here long. Go ask someone inside. So I walked towards the door, and a couple came out carrying a large plate of food. They would not look at me. Excuse me, does your church offer any kind of food assistance? We don't know. There are some people inside. So I go inside, and there was two gentlemen inside the door. Can I help you? Sure. I sure hope so. Do you offer any kind of food assistance? No, we haven't got that going yet, but maybe soon. I saw a bunch of people in another room with large tables full of food. I guess they were having some kind of dinner on the grounds or dinner for their members, and I walked away. This was probably the most humiliating, sad thing I had experienced in this journey so far. I was really mad, to say the least, and I could see why the homeless I had met were so turned off by the church. I'm not saying all church people are that way, but there should not be one like this. I believe you should not just give things out free without being intentional about getting to know them through the process, but I also think you need to at least be nice. I walk some more. I know what Isaiah 58 means when it talks about the poor wanderer. I was like wandering with no real purpose or plan. I was at a loss. Honestly, I was getting a little frustrated by now. I walked to the gas station and let me use the bathroom. I drank water from the bathroom sink for what seemed like forever. I went outside and sat down on the sidewalk, not really knowing what to do next. When I started walking, I came up to another church with a car in the lot. I thought to myself, why bother? They won't give me anything. Why try? I guess that is how those who are homeless feel. I decided to go ahead and walk up. When I did, I could tell the two ladies in the car did not want to roll down the window. Man came out from inside the church, and the ladies rolled down the window. I asked them some questions I had asked the previous two churches and really expected the same answer. But to my surprise, they said yes. They got the key to the food pantry and went inside, and they were very nice. They started to fill my bag for me with typical canned vegetables that most churches give away: green beans, corn, cranberry sauce. I told them I had no way to cook or open a can. They loaded my bag with Pop-Tarts, canned beef stew with a pop top, cereal, and even gave me some soap and razors. I guess I looked pretty bad. They then offered to pray with me and give me a ride to the waterfront rescue mission. I told them thank you, but the food was enough. They were really nice, and it made me very happy to see people actually doing what the church is supposed to do. When I got outside the door, I put all the food in my backpack so it was easy to carry and went on my way. So I moved on. This was about 3 o'clock. I stayed outside the tent for a few hours once I got back to there, and the whole time I couldn't relax. I kept thinking someone was going to come up walking on me. At about 5, I got inside the tent and inside my sleeping bag so I wouldn't get too cold, and then it hit me that it was going to be another 13 hours. I started to read my Bible again like the last time, and at this point I felt God telling me this would be the last night as a homeless person, but I wanted to make sure it was Him. As I read, He led me through Isaiah 58:7. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and provide the poor wanderer with shelter? I had packed up my stuff in the morning, and He would lead me to someone in need of my tent, sleeping bag, and my food. It was getting dark and cold outside, so I lay down. I remember thinking 12 hours, 11 hours, 10 hours until daylight. I couldn't get comfortable, and I kept hearing all kinds of noises. Thinking the worst, of course, I prayed what seemed to be all night, but I did get a few hours of sleep. I thought through that process as, what about those out there that don't have God, that can't pray the fear away and can't pray those things away? That's why it's important for us to share this God that we talk about, this Jesus that we know. So then my thoughts on that day helped me again to understand the daily struggles of those in need. I felt the frustration of humbling yourself to ask for help and not receiving it. I felt the feeling of hopelessness and lack of purpose that they must feel. What it's like to just wander through life. I know most of you want to know what churches I stopped at, but I'm not going to say because we must decide which church we will be. I will say I went to 3 different denominations just so they couldn't blame each other. We are each the church, and it is up to us individually to make a difference. I know this. Most of us have placed the homeless or those in need into 2 categories, either criminals or lazy. I see that it doesn't matter. If they are good people, we have already cast judgment on them based on their situation instead of the person that God made them to be. My daughter told me when I was getting ready to do this that I didn't have to be afraid. I asked her why not, she said. Because you are the one they are going to be afraid of. I asked her why she thought that, and she said because people are afraid of homeless people. I asked her why she thought people are afraid of homeless people, and she said because they don't know them. I asked her if she was afraid of the homeless we had met in the cafes. She said no, because I got to know them. We need to get to know the people before we pass judgment on them. I understand we must be careful and not just give a person the keys to our home. I also know if we walk by the Spirit and allow God to lead us, He will show us what to do. When someone says all Christians are hypocrites, it's not fair to Christians. When someone says all homeless are criminals or lazy, that's not fair to them. Many times in the Bible, God says help the poor and the needy. God just wants us to be willing to help anyone, and He will bring those in our path that He wants to help. We can't do everything, but we can do something. We just have to be willing. Join today and ask God to show you and give you the ability to meet that need. So now we're in day 3, and I know this is probably going to be a little longer podcast than normal, but I just want you to feel kind of what I felt, because now just even going through this, it's opening my eyes to some things that I've kind of let go. So I got up that morning and I felt I was supposed to pack up everything. I had $5 left, and I could buy all-day bus pass for $3. The bus wasn't there yet, so I waited. It came around 7, and my money was still wet, so it would not go into the machine. The driver did not have any dry money to swap with me, but a nice young guy had some ones he traded with me. I really had no idea where I was going, but I knew this bus would at least get me to the mall, where all the other buses leave from. I got to the mall about 7:30 and waited for the next bus. I prayed and felt like I was supposed to go to Tillman's Corner area. I got on the bus and was shocked to see all the people that used the bus to go to work. Think how hard it would be to time it so you weren't late for work. I met a lady named Joan who was homeless, and she rides the bus all day, long for her $3. She doesn't really have anywhere to go, but it gets her out of the weather, and she mostly sleeps. I bet that is great when it's raining, I said. She nodded her head. She was nice but painfully shy, so I didn't get much of her story. The bus takes you to Walmart, so I got off there. My feet were still killing me. The bottoms of both of my feet were covered in blisters. I started walking towards Tillman's Corner, and I was walking across the parking lot, asking God to show me who needed the stuff that I was giving away. I walked for about 30 minutes and then saw a man coming towards me. I felt in my spirit that he was the man who needed it. I walked up to him and asked him if he knew anyone who needed a tent. Butch started to tear up. He said he and his wife had been sleeping on the ground in the woods covered with a tarp at night. I told him God wanted him to have this one, along with a sleeping bag and some food. Butch was a very hard-looking man, but I could almost visibly see his hard exterior melt away and reveal a man who was hurting and in need. God used me to meet that need for him. I now knew for sure I had heard from God, and it wasn't me just wanting to go home. Butch asked me if I wanted to meet his wife, so I walked back in the woods with him and met her. He showed me the spot where they had been staying, and he was very proud to show his wife the tent. She was excited, but you could tell she did not totally trust me. It was so awesome to see God meet the need of someone I didn't even know, and he let me be part of it. They just wanted someone to care. It didn't matter who. I left them and went to McDonald's to get a cup of coffee and to charge my phone. I started walking towards the woods where I had left Butch and his wife, and I met Jeffrey. He was an older gentleman who has lost his job and had been out of work for a while and had really just given up on ever finding work again. And he had really just given up about everything. He talked about how long he'd been homeless and then got into a conversation about church and Jesus, and he assured me that if it wasn't for Jesus, he couldn't make it out here. Then a man named Roger walked up and talked to us. They told me that most of the people on the streets are not bad people. They said there are some bad people out there, but they don't hang around with them. I saw some really neat qualities in these two guys that I wish I had sometimes. I know a lot of people, including myself, before I really started getting to know people in this position, would see these guys and think, bum, why don't you get a job? But these guys are people, hurting, confused, struggling people. I count it a blessing to have met these guys and hear about their stories and struggles. They seemed to open up to me because I was one of them. But really, I think they would open up to anyone who seemed like they cared. It was an eye-opening experience, and I thank God for leading me there. I decided I was going to walk back to the bus. It was now close to 11, and I could get on the bus and maybe get a hot meal somewhere. A place where people could eat downtown was called 15 Place. I got on the bus, and it took me to the mall, and then I had to get on another bus to go downtown. We got downtown around noon and dropped me off 12 blocks from 15 Place, so I had to walk. It was Mardi Gras, so there were many people downtown that day. I got to 15 Place, and they were closed. I then walked to the square downtown and asked a couple of homeless guys if anyone was feeding today, and they said Salvation Army was at 3 p.m. I was hungry. I started to walk around looking for something to eat. I walked down Government Street, and there were parades going on. Everyone was having a blast. I'd only been out there 3 days, and I missed my family so much. Watching all these people with their families made it even worse. As I walked people on the floats threw things my way. A moon pie landed at my feet. I picked it up so fast, I almost hurt my back. I ate that thing so fast and then went looking for more. That was the best moon pie I'd ever eaten, and I probably ate 8 moon pies that day. I walked and saw a vendor booth and went up to the man and asked him if he had some water and how much it was. This is the coolest thing that happened probably. Well, maybe not the coolest, but it was cool. He said, "Hey, this is a donation-only vendor booth. We're trying to do what that local cafe does and helps people out." He said, and I smiled and thought, God, you are so good. He just kept giving me signs that I was right where he wanted me to be. I told the man in the booth I only had 15 cents. Well, that's a donation, he said. I had to walk another 10 blocks to catch the bus because the bus was not coming all the way downtown. When I got on that bus, it was 2 p.m., and I waited for the next bus. It never showed up, so I had to catch the bus going to downtown bus station and then catch the bus back to the mall. We pulled up at the GM&O building as the mall bus was leaving, so I had to wait another hour. I got to the mall around 5 p.m. and then back out to Providence Hospital about 5:30. I walked up to my car that I had parked a few days ago at 6 p.m. I put my backpack in, climbed inside my car. As I sat down, I began to weep. All that I had experienced, all I had felt, and all I had seen hit me all at once. It was a flood of emotions. I thought about how blessed I am and how I thought about all those I had met, thousands of others all over the country who do not have a place to go home to. I drove home feeling so overwhelmed at all I had learned and all God was teaching me through this experience. Some of my thoughts about that day were I learned that there are good people who are just in need of someone to show they care. I also learned that if you just get to know someone, we might find out that they are not much different from us. Everyone has struggles. We don't all have the same ones, but we all have struggles. We all want to belong and to be treated with respect. And just because we don't have a home doesn't take that desire away. I would like everyone who listens to this to understand that all people are made in God's image. No matter where they live or what they do, God loves them, and He wants us to love them too. Show your fellow humans respect. Treat them with the same respect you want to be treated with. We also need to be led more by the Spirit of God and not by our own spirit of fear. When it comes to helping others, God will lead us to a need, and He will also give us the ability to meet that need if we would just ask Him. It breaks my heart when I think about all the blessings, like the one with Butch, that I missed because I let my fear, busyness, ignorance, and indifference lead me instead of God's Spirit. I wonder how many times people cry out to God to meet a need, and He puts it on someone's heart to meet that need, but they ignore it because they are too busy or they are too scared. It looks to the person in need like God doesn't care, when it really isn't God that doesn't care, it's us. We as the church need to stop preaching about a loving, caring God and start living like we believe it. People are tired of hearing about it. They want to see it, and it starts with us. Now, my homeless experience was one of the most life-changing things I've ever done. It made me look at people differently. I know it was only 3 days. I still didn't learn the full scope of what a homeless encounter or emotionally process on a daily basis, because in the back of my mind, I knew I had a place to go when it was all over. When I did go home, I got in the shower, and I will tell you, it was the most amazing shower that I've ever taken in my life. And I'll admit I cried knowing that all those I had met didn't have the luxury, and I prayed God to help us provide that. I will tell you, as I read through that journal, and I remember that, it's almost like I can relive it through that. I'm really hoping through this podcast that you were able to at least get a glimpse of what it was like. The key to all this is that we must understand those that we're serving. And the only way we get to understand it, no, I'm not telling you to go out and be homeless on purpose. I'm not telling you any of that. I'm telling you just to listen. Listen to those around you, because everyone has a story, and they didn't just get there because they wanted to. So please, if you get anything out of this podcast, please listen to people. Don't listen to them so that you can change their mind. Don't listen to them so you can get them to believe the same way you believe. Don't listen to them so that you can convert them. Listen to them because you care. And God will take care of all the other stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that it touched your heart. I hope that it changed it. I wish you would share this with everyone you know. Share it, rate it, give us a review. We have this podcast every Wednesday. We do a new one every week. I hope that you will join us, and again, share it with your friends. Again, thank you for tuning in to the Ransom Experience. And we are blessed to have you as a listener. You can follow us on all the social medias. You can go to our website, ransomministries.com, to find out more about what we do through Ransom Reprogram, Ransom Recycling, our new resale thrift store that we have opened out in Chickasaw, where you can buy new or almost new clothes, get a great deal, put people back to work. It's our next theater of work where we teach people to go from poverty to work. We praise our God for it. We thank you again for tuning in. And until next week, that's me. I'll see you later.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. With